So, without further ado, Alexander.
I'm Alexander Tucker Barfield. I'm the class of 1980. We were the class of 80 proof, much
Sing the song.
I know all the words and I cannot carry a tune. It always says make a joyful noise, right? But anyway, and I'm on the alumni board, and welcome, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we're delighted, and we'll be doing admissions all afternoon. So as you guys go through other sessions, here's the first, and we're going to kick it off. I want to introduce to you Lois Williams, who is our Vice President for Enrollment. And Lois comes to us from Emory and Henry with a BA in Mass Communications and MS in Counseling and Human Development from Radford University. So lots of good regional experience in here. And she started her admissions career at her alma mater and has worked in at that place in admissions, financial aid, and college registrar. And she has over 22 years of enrollment experience and has been working at Mary Baldwin for how long?
3 years.
3 years.
Almost
Excellent.
3 years.
Very good. And with you, I think at the back of the room, all right, is Amber Wilkins. Hello.
Hello.
And Amber is class of 2011, Mary Baldwin. So sisters were and is serving as the interim director of admissions, and originally from Chesapeake, and got her degree here in communications and marketing. And you're pursuing a master's degree in higher ed administration.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you, me, you. It's a good master's. Yes. And then also working as assistant director of admissions is Emily Parker. Hey, Emily was born and raised on Long Island and came to Mary Baldwin at 16 when her high school closed. I love this history. And graduated in 2013 with a BA in Arts Management, and was involved in the President's Society, STARS, Relay for Life, and then worked at Sweetbriar for a time. Excellent. Glad to have you all both back on campus. That's terrific. And glad to have Lois here today. So I know there are a lot of questions about how we can get involved in recruiting students and engaging students and retaining students, and I think that that's what Lois is going to share. Without further ado.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I thought I would start, I know we only have 15 minutes for the presentation part, and then we'll jump into question and answer, and I'd like to talk to you all about the Bravo program. Some of you have already volunteered through that program and are already helping us out, I believe. But I thought I would discuss a little bit, start by explaining the enrollment management function at Mary Baldwin and how it's come together under the university. What we have under enrollment management is the College for Women recruitment team, and then also the adult and graduate and financial aid. So all of those report through enrollment management, which is very much like a, hi there, thank you for coming, as a university would function. So I wanted to jump into the College for Women and that recruitment effort because it's very different than the adult market. And the way we start that is, and most institutions do it this way, you start by building your inquiry. And that happens, the younger you can start, of course, the better, because there's a connection to the institution and more of an affinity and a likelihood to actually enroll. And so what we do there is College Board and ACT are really the two big ways that colleges and universities get their information about students. For instance, if we did a first source of inquiry, the way that we heard about you all, if we could look back on that history, we would probably see that your name came to the institution through College Board or ACT, probably. There are a couple of other outlying organizations that do that, but that's the main way. The other ways that we build inquiry pools, or I call them organic ways, so through our website, through referrals, if you have a sister or cousin, that sort of thing. There are even companies out there now that help find legacy students for you as well. So those are the ways, and private visits to high schools, college fairs, so we build the inquiry pool in those ways. It's important to move more of the inquiry building, however it happens, if you get a student through College Board or ACT, it's important to move that further back in the funnel, as I was saying in the beginning, because it really does help build students' identity and connection to the institution, help them understand your brand and connection to Mary Baldwin. So that is something that we've really been working on over the past few years. So instead of just trying to capture students in their senior year, because it is much harder to matriculate and yield those students. The other place that we are really going to be beefing up in the future is the digital outreach. And really, we have recently, last April, hired someone in our office devoted specifically to, she has a territory, but she really works on the social media side. So we are working along with university advancement, university relations, to really beef up that presence and get more information out about that, and really delve into using IP targeting so that you can go where the students are, dish out information about Mary Baldwin, whether it be the PEG program, early admission, skipping a senior year of high school, that sort of thing. And then also the retargeting. So if a student visits your website, I mean, we all know when you go to the Loft and you buy the squirrel shirt or whatever, it follows you around on the internet. They want to constantly remind you. So those are some of the more new age ways that we would like to get into, and really, because that's really a student who sought you out in some way, so you want to capture their information. Because the other part of it is they don't always go through to the information form. The number of students, if we look at our inquiry pool and our matriculants, the number of students who actually, the first source is the application. That's not really the first time that they're hearing about you. You just don't know because they haven't done anything to tell you who they are. So, and if you haven't picked their name up in some other way, it looks as if, oh, they just applied and that's how they heard about Mary Baldwin. So it's a little more complicated than that, and I think the digital outreach would really help us get into that world a little bit more. And so that is really kind of the junior and younger sort of cultivation for your inquiry pool and building. And the other kind of next step is once a student gets into their senior year and you're cultivating them to move them through to actually matriculate. What we have been doing is we really are heavily make sure we have Virginia, the surrounding states, and the further southeast, and then Texas and some other states. Now, nationally, we do go out to College Board and ACT to make sure that we get the students who expressly say they are interested in a women's college. So that is a national reach. The other national reach is VWIL. So we look at those students who express interest in JROTC and those kinds of programs, and have they participated in high school and what they say on these inventories. So those are ways that we capture those names. Those are two big national ways that we gather names. If we went national, tried to buy everybody who took the SAT and ACT, it's financially prohibitive, and the yield on that is not really that productive. So it's really about finding the students who are a right fit, and we do that through a couple of different ways. One of them being, and I won't bore you with the details of this, I really enjoy the data of this, but is the geodemography behind who actually comes, and you can figure out from that who really is. You could buy a bunch of names all day long, but they may never matriculate because they don't fit your profile and the students who actually end up yielding at your institution. But I won't bore you with those details. And so that's a little bit. Now on the senior cultivation, I think it's important to note, so if it's a student that we're just learning about in their senior year, instead of sending out information and trying to get the student to connect and sort of come back to us with an information form and give us information on themselves, what we do there is we go out with an application because it's their senior year. We want to tell them a lot about Mary Baldwin, kind of in a fast track way, no pun intended, but to really get them through to the application, get it complete, get them to a place where we can make a decision on their admission. So that is the senior side. Now, the next thing that starts to happen is the communication sequence. So we're reaching out to all of these students at the same time that we're collecting new names as they come in, and new inquiries and new referrals from the alumni office, from whomever gets it. If you call in to the front desk of admissions and say, I have a niece, so that automatically goes into a communication sequence that not just only includes the mailing and things that we send out to tell students about Mary Baldwin, but also phone calling and inviting them to events on campus, or some of what we do in Texas, for instance, is meet and greets where we go to coffee houses. So Panera, Starbucks, whatever, and meet students and their families there. So we do quite a bit of that. The high school visits are the next thing. Those are the face-to-face meetings with students and parents. And I say high school visits and college fairs, because those are the ways that we meet. Another way that we gain students' information, it might be that we find we already have it in the system, but that is another way that we can get organic students who might not show up in any other way. They come by our table at a college fair. And they ask questions about B-Will, PEG, or whatever the program is that they're interested in. And in conjunction with the college fairs, we will also do private visits to high schools. So that is going in, we talked a little bit about that this morning, where you actually go in and sit down with a guidance counselor, and they take a couple of different forms. So we might go to Robert E. Lee, and there would be 15 students to meet with. So that's a different kind of meeting. We're sitting face-to-face with students, talking to them about Mary Baldwin. The other kind is, you might go to a high school and they say, well, we don't have anybody today, or they're taking a test, or whatever it is. So we sit down with a guidance counselor, and that's also a very productive way. Because if they know about Mary Baldwin and what we have to offer, and they're engaged and really understand the programming, then they know who their students are in some cases. I think it's a little tougher at the public schools, the larger publics, because they're testing, they're doing all of that stuff. We can go on all day about those kinds of things that are taking them away from actually doing the thing that they love, probably. So those are our face-to-face meetings with prospective students, and we do these. We travel heavily in Virginia, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Texas. And this year, because we have a staff person on staff, and the way applications were coming in from California, we have someone who has a relative, and so she traveled California for us very recently. And I'll share some of that data with you all in just a few minutes. One of the things I also wanted to share is, and I don't think we talked about this morning, last year we finished up visiting about 181 high schools, and this year we were just over 300. So we increased the number of high schools that we went out to across those states, and we are even, because I'm going to stop and share some data with you all from one of the things that we've done with University College, because the majors are very specific. One of the things that we did was to go out to College Board and ACT and say, here are these programs, what majors have students indicated that align with them. So we gathered a lot of information there, and we've done a lot of outreach to those students to encourage them to apply. And one of the things that's happened as a result of that is that the applications across the board have increased. So not just in University College. For instance, for the University College applicants, Alabama, California, Florida, Illinois, Michigan, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas are really big application numbers. So that, as a result of that same buy of information, students that we had identified or thought might align with the programs, it's also increased our Virginia applications, our transfer applications have increased. California, and this is under the Women's College, Illinois, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, New Mexico, Nevada, New York, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Now, the further out, yield changes a little bit on that, but I thought that was interesting, and it's such that some of the feedback and interaction that we've been having with students, and particularly in the Michigan area, we are going to actually do some travel in that area this spring, just based on how students are interacting and how they're completing their applications. And that is centered largely around the Detroit area. So that I think that's a kind of an interesting point. So point of data, how it all ends. At the end of the day, we'll know in August, but it is a place of starting. Then we turn to campus events. All of these things, as you all can imagine, are going on simultaneously. They're layered on top of each other, and they're happening all the time. But these are kind of the buckets of admissions. So the campus visit programs are the visit days that we have here. So we invite students to campus to meet with faculty, students, and our staff and talk about Mary Baldwin. I'm sure when you all came through, you probably visited. And no one came sight unseen probably to Mary Baldwin, but maybe they did. Did anyone come sight unseen? I mean, it happens.
I was being the mother of a family of 5.
Okay.
All right, I came on the first day of my freshman year.
And that happens, but I like it when you come to visit early. And your parents do too, by the way. But at any rate, so some of those ways are, we have Boldly Baldwin visit days. We do those during the week, and those are a way for students to actually get into the existing classes. So that's the big part of that day. They meet with athletics, they meet with financial aid, whatever the decision points are for them, we coordinate all of those interactions. There are overnights. So what we will do is invite students in on a Sunday afternoon. They stay overnight. Monday is the Boldly Baldwin day. So for the student who doesn't want to stay the night, they can just come in on Monday morning and join the rest of the group. And largely, most people want to stay overnight. That's still the experience. And then in the spring, we do admitted student preview days. And these are the days where students come in. They will do an inventory to register for classes. Roommate mingles, things like that, to really get them thinking about, who am I going to live with, who's going to bring the refrigerator, those kinds of things, and sort of get them thinking early about those next steps. Many ASPD days. We do these for students who do not attend or can't attend the Accepted Student Preview Day. So we run these throughout the month of April, and then we roll into orientation days. And these are, we have one big orientation in the summer in July, and some students may or may not be able to make that because of family vacations. So what we start doing in May are Future Squirrel Fridays. So students can come in on Fridays. They basically do the steps of orientation, get paperwork out of the way, those kinds of things. And what we've been doing that for 2 years.
2 years, yes ma'am.
And what we found, every year, it's funny, but we have at least one student who's close enough that they can come, and so they come back several times to meet other students who are coming in, so they kind of know their classmates before they get here. At least we've had 2 students do that, and it's kind of interesting. We get to know them really well, and we see them every Friday. And then we do off-campus meetings. And this is an area I think that we could really use some help, is coordinating some places where if it's homes, clubs that you're members of, or those kinds of things, but really getting connected in the community. So in the beach area, who can help us coordinate an event there? And during yield season, but then also in the summer, it would be nice for us to do summer send-offs where we kind of partner with the alumni office, and we bring students together. And it's kind of that handoff of, here's Lisa Wells from Student Life, kind of those next people that you're going to be working with. Those are areas I think and I think we've got enough time that we could actually implement some of these types of events this spring and then the summer send-off this summer. I would really like to be able to do summer send-offs in at least the beach area, Richmond, and Northern Virginia. So if anyone has an interest in that sort of thing, please talk to us about that. The year I've gone about this a little backward, I realize, but kind of the next year of recruiting in terms of kind of big visit days or visit weeks jumps off with Virginia Private College Week. It's the last week of July, and the College of Independent Virginia College Counselors, I know I'm doing that wrong, CICB, they coordinate this week. So they do a big mailing out to students who've expressed interest in private colleges saying, have this week, do the circuit, here's the schools. And we have a good number of visitors off of that, and our yield off of that is pretty good as well. And then we have overnight honors events. And of course, there's the regular weekly visit of a student who can drop in or just call and say, I want to come at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. And we have Saturday visits as well. And what we really do, we have scheduled Boldly Baldwin days, but what we do is the year, as the spring shapes up, if we need to add more visit days, we do. We will, it ends up being a pretty packed spring because to me, if 2 students can come, that's a successful day. If it's 1 student, it's a successful day. So we'll do as many events as we need to. Volunteer ambassadors, I think, kind of fall into a couple of areas. There's the alumni outreach, which happens through Bravo. And Bravo is an organization that is called Baldwin Recruitment Alumni Volunteer Organization. So that's what that stands for, and we started in the fall of 2015. We started this year with 29 volunteers. We're up to 66 now, and we really like to hear from you about how you want to help. Are you willing to do events in your area, or host events, help us coordinate note writing and college fair and high school attendance, or private visits at high schools. So that organization, I think, it's in its infancy, but we are starting off, and I think we've had some pretty good successes. We had a couple of people do college fairs this fall. We've already had 200 notes written in the fall to the incoming class. So that's some of what's happening there, and we can certainly do more. And then, of course, faculty assist by being willing to meet with students when they come to campus, helping out with event days, overnight events, having lunch with all of those kinds of things. And then the student-to-student recruitment. And this happens through the President's Society, and I think that's probably what it was called when many of you were here. But that organization that helps provide tours of campus and tell students what it's like to be a student here, take them around campus, show them, and tell them what the story is. That's still a thriving organization and very active, and we couldn't do our work without them.
Very true.
And then also JARS, and what JARS are junior admissions representatives, and those are students who help Emily make phone calls to students, because Emily calls them, but they sometimes respond better to another student, and it also gives them that perspective. Emily can tell them what it was like when she was a student here, but sometimes it's better hearing from a current student. So that's probably a year old. We started that last year. And then the personalized face-to-face recruiting of the counseling staff. So the way we take all of this and divide it up so that somebody's responsible and accountable for it is territory managers. So that's Emily, that's Amber, and that's about 8 other people back in the office. So we take the whole United States and international, and we divide it out. So in Virginia, we go by county. Outside of Virginia, we go by state. So Emily, some of your out-of-state territory is South Carolina, is one. So she'll be responsible for any student who expresses interest from South Carolina. And so that's kind of the breakdown of that. So what they do is the admissions counselors, they review files for admission. Do we need additional information from a student? Are they a borderline admit? Do we need some recommendations? We want to know more about kind of what's happening with their grades and where they're at academically. And then they help with getting files complete for financial aid. We still need your FAFSA. We'd love to talk to you about a full financial aid package. However, we still need this information. They talk to parents. They talk about securing the deposit, filling out the housing forms, all of those kinds of details. There's a lot of details to take care of. And our primary markets are, and I think this is, if I look back 10 years, this is still the case. It's pretty consistent. Virginia and secondary, DC, Maryland, North Carolina, Delaware, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Texas. And then the tertiary and extra draw areas are South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and then everything else. And Texas is a really strong state for us, particularly with BWIL. The same could be said of Florida for BWIL as well. PEG enrollment tends to be a little broader. It will be Virginia, of course, in the southeast, but you will see the Midwest and California some, and some Texas. But it's just a little more spread out than the other. We also have designated recruiters to work with athletics, the honors program, and the BWIL program. And I'm running out of time. Thank you. PEG also, Amber is our recruiter for the PEG program. We also have a dedicated person for homeschool recruitment. And the ways that we do that, and I'd love to hear from you all if you have other organizations that you know of for homeschool that we can get in touch with. But we do the Maryland Association of Christian Home Educators, Thrive through the North Carolina for Home Education, and the National Association for Gifted. Through that, we do banner ads. We exhibit at the National Association for the Gifted. and the Virginia Homeschool Conference, SING, which is a gifted conference as well, and the Virginia, I've already said that, the Virginia Homeschool. And am I at time?
We have 15 minutes now for discussion. I think
Yes.
that was the
Okay.
real point,
Sorry.
was Lois wanted to share with you what she has in place, and then you guys build on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Alexander and I are here to help facilitate that conversation, so wonderful information. Thank you very, very much for all of that. She's familiar and different at the same time, and I just want to say, I respect Lois's comment about getting on campus, but Jenny and Terry Southernton stayed for all these years, so I think there's something.
I sent a daughter.
Fair enough, absolutely. Know her well. Know her well. I'm sure you all have questions, and again, in moving forward and trying to plug in and get that good alumni engagement that I think we all know can move the needle when it comes to recruiting for the Women's College. And I know that we have a wealth of experience in the room, people who have worked in admissions prior, people who are working in admissions now, about how we can do that. So I think if you have, thoughts, bless you, on things that Lois needs to hear about, yes, I'm willing to help in Richmond and do that sort of thing. See her after, and we can exchange emails and all of that. We want to make sure you get your questions answered now. Who would like to begin?
I have a question. Did I understand, are you participating in buying names from NRCCUA?
We do purchase some names from NRCCUA.
Okay.
Our big, we use them a lot with the PEG program.
Why not for the residential?
We do for the residential. Right now, we're using them for legacy and declare. Their legacy program, so they help you find your legacies, and then the declare program. We do smaller buys with them. What we find is there's a great deal of overlap with the and the College Board and ECT, and we've already gotten the name in many cases, so we do a little more targeted buying with them at the moment. If you have some suggestions on that, I'm happy to hear that. If you have experience working with them and would like to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and Jessica Hyde Markham, am I right? Okay, in class of 98. That's what I thought. So yeah, so give your name and class year.
Oh, sorry.
No, I didn't ask you.
I'm looking when I can.
Yeah. So I had a question for the students that elect to go somewhere else. What are some of the big reasons why?
On the admitted student questionnaire, sometimes they didn't want to come to a women's college. Sometimes it's money, major, fit. I mean, it really is across the board. And we do the admitted student questionnaire in May of each year and collect that data.
Leah, what's your class year?
2003.
Excellent. And just gives us perspective of who's in the room. Yeah. Excellent.
Many, many years ago, when I was at Mary Baldwin, there was this phenomena, particularly out of Texas and Alabama, of girls who came to Mary Baldwin for 2 years and then transferred back home. Is that still a big deal?
I don't see the transfer back home as much. The transfer thing does happen, of course, but I don't see every Texas and Alabama student doing that. So I don't know, do you know what the reason for that was, or was there?
Kind of finishing school thing, right?
It probably was a little bit finishing school, but they usually went back. They wanted to go, and they went to the University of Texas, and had the big, football, sorority, all that. So they wanted both. Their mom and daddy wanted to have one experience. They came from Mary Baldwin for that. They wanted the other one too.
Yes.
And they meet guys from their home state.
That's right, and not be Texas.
Yeah.
Mom and dad had a strategy in that too.
In the back.
I appreciate you giving us, sorry, my name is Alex. I appreciate all the information that you gave us on sort of some of the data mining efforts. I want to understand a little bit, because I actually have worked as a recruiter for jobs. And to me, what has been the most successful indicator of whether somebody will be a good fit is having strong relationships. So I approach it from a very relationship-driven perspective. And so I would like to understand a little bit more about what you do to cultivate relationships with high school guidance counselors, high school teachers, just so I can really understand, because I believe you said you visited 181 high school college fairs, is that correct?
College fairs and private visits.
And
That
private
was
visits.
last year, and this year we did a little over 300.
And then I sort of have a follow-up question on how, as ambassadors of the school, we as alumni can work more effectively through the Bravo program to be, you know, recruiters, essentially walking ambassadors for the school.
For the relationship management piece of things, that's where I think that the counselors are really heavily involved. They are the contact with the student. The person who's calling, encouraging them to visit, along with their student helpers, and that sort of thing. The guidance counselor piece, some of the things we're looking at doing this spring are local guidance counselor on-campus lunches. And we're thinking of doing that also with the community colleges to get those folks on campus as well. The other thing we would like to do is a fly-in, to bring people in from further away that may not know as much about Mary Baldwin. So I think those are things that we can do to better cultivate the guidance counselor relationship. But counselors on one-on-one, when they're going into the high school, that is a lot of how that relationship happens, is through those visits. But I do think getting them on campus is really important so they can see what we're about. And we can't take faculty with us to every single high school we visit. So getting them here would give them a chance to see this facility and other facilities, and also to meet our faculty. And I think you had another question, which...
So that does somewhat answer my question. I guess I don't really think that's sufficient in my just opinion, but just to be respectful.
Emily, I'm sorry, she would like to jump in and...
Yeah, with the guidance counselor, something that I do, something that I've always done is after I do a school visit, I write them a note card saying, thank you so much for meeting with me, I look forward to working with your students in the future. And if I get students from that guidance counselor where they have a great recommendation letter, or I really want that student for Mary Baldwin, I will reach out and say, hey, have you heard from the student, how's she doing? Do you know how she's feeling about Mary Baldwin? And it's also keeping a record of those visits so that when the territory switch does happen, I can say, oh, my colleague Amber was here last year, she said this was a great visit, so that we continue building as we change territories and we change areas, we keep those relationships.
And then I asked a follow-up on how we as alumni can be the best ambassadors and be walking recruiters.
And I think that, I mean, I hope that through this I can kind of get some brainstorm ideas from you of how you think the organization could work. But immediately, the things that we need are note writing, and we're coming up on spring travel. So it would really be helpful if we could get a core of people, wherever you're at, that we could, get you some information, and in your area, get you into those high schools. So the spring travel, you can still pick up some seniors in the spring travel, but it's really about that next fall. So it's the fall set 18 class that we're working on then. But those are two immediate things that we really do need help with. And then, of course, I would just like to hear what else you all think and what other ideas you have. And I'm not sure who had their hand up first.
Thanks. I'm Trimble Bailey Spitzer, 99. So I completely agree with Alex that the relation, for me as a high school student looking for college, that the relationship aspect really was key to the reason why I chose here. So I'm wondering if, and also I'm thinking about, well, how can I help with recruitment? And I'm certainly not a recruiter, and that's not my specialty, and so I don't know that that would be the best way for me to go in. I've gone and talked with guidance counselors, things like that. But anyway, so my point is that a professional would do that part. That would be you. And then once a student has been identified, is it possible, or is it does it violate any privacy for you to then say, hey, Trimble, I have Sally Smith, she's at this high school and she's voiced interest, could you give her a call? And then I'm happy to call and say, hey, I'm an alumni from Baldwin and I am local in your area, I heard you had some interest, would you like to meet for coffee? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that would be really, I think with the privacy thing, I've been thinking about how we could sort of get permission from the student to be contacted. And I think that's a part of just changing some kind of sign out information on our application. Because I know that, I believe from things I've heard from the alumni office and from people who've been in admissions, there's some point in time where that became an issue or a concern. And I think that is a place where some efforts sort of started to dwindle off. And so I'm thinking, how can we fix that? And I think the application, we have to ask them on the application, can we text you with information? So it seems like that's a place where we can incorporate that. And that's a change that we can make fairly quickly.
I just think that would be helpful to hear from an alumni.
Oh, I do.
That's not from the office.
Yes, if I can piggyback off of that, because I hosted an event in Charlottesville over Christmas, and it turned out, I hosted an event in Charlottesville at Christmas, and it turned out, unfortunately, the alum attendance was low, and so I said, hey, we've already spent this money, let's invite prospective students in, and they can meet some alums. And at that time, I was disappointed because it seemed like it was a bridge too far, so I would encourage as we move forward that the university staff as a whole work together, because I think Bravo should be incorporated with alumni events, because we're small enough that we gotta join forces here and piggyback.
And we've been
we
thinking of it in a silo, and it really is, it should be
Yeah,
an alumni event.
And we had very successful ones trying to, and the parent council would host, Jennifer Brilhart-Kibler, hi everybody, by the way, 1991 graduate, and I was part of the admissions team for a while and executive director of alumni and parent relations. So I can come at it from a lot of different perspectives. We had a lot of successful admissions and alumni events, and parent council even hosted some guidance counselor events in Richmond, and I think we did Chesapeake also. Hard to find a time with the guidance counselors, obviously, that
Right, that after
and-
3:30 or
exactly,
whatever is.
exactly.
say
But we did have several that were successful. So, and I want to go back to what Trumbull said and to reiterate what Leah said. For all of us in this room, I would say that it was relationships that we built that got us here. It was our admissions counselor. It was coming on a prospective day and everyone you had the opportunity to meet that day. It was an alum that was calling, because those are things that we've done in the past. So I think that for us, with our enthusiasm and our passion and our commitment to Mary Baldwin, that we take that and we do what we can to help the prospective students every way we can to also have that with building those relationships, with just helping them feel comfortable and safe and supported and show them what great place this is and what it can do for a young woman.
Yeah, I think
So.
And we're getting down on time. So I know I saw Jessica's hand and then I saw in the back, and then we're gonna have to wrap up so you guys can get to the next sheet B, but we'll be here afterwards, so don't hesitate.
So, I have two questions. One, are you still with Royal?
No.
I'm sorry to hear that. And two, do you have contracts with CapEx, Chegg, and Naviance to get names?
We have a contract with Naviance, and we are talking to Chegg right now. And
not
we do have a presence with CapEx.
Right, but that's an unpaid subscription, so
Right.
you're not getting a guaranteed number of inquiries.
Not through CapEx.
No, but they're one of the leading companies in
Well, thank
supplying
you
search
for
names.
telling us that. We were certainly at that.
So I just wanted to, my name is Kamala Payne Chapman. I'm class of 2005, and I'm also on the board of trustees. So I just want to thank you guys for being here and for asking such great questions. I just wanted to kind of, we had a long talk, I believe, at lunch with some alums, also in between lunch. And I mean, if you look at the population here, there are not that many people who look like me. So, and we had a discussion kind of about minority recruitment. So, could you maybe talk a little bit about how your recruiting strategies are? You know, I mean, it's definitely different than when I was here and there was like a minority recruitment weekend and all of that. But can you talk a little bit about minority recruitment and students of color and how you're pulling from that diverse pool to you know, quilt this fabric of Mary Baldwin that we're all so familiar with, and maybe a little bit about retention of current minorities on campus?
And with minority recruitment, we each year, we consistently have, I will not get this right, but I want to say of the incoming freshmen, the breakdown of, it was just over 50%.
think it was closer, I think it was about
Breakdown
51%.
of what you just
51%.
said.
I'm sorry, the diversity of the entering freshman class was 51%. And the year before, I mean, it's consistently, that's been pretty consistent over the past 5 years. And what we saw last year was a growth in Hispanic students, a really substantial growth. From, I want to say, 8 students the year before to 41 in this entering class this year. And they came from across the state and also out of state. In particularly Texas, there were several in the VWIL class that came in, along with Florida. So we specifically go out to high schools across Virginia. Any of the territories that we're in, we target those high schools because of the history of the students who come there from Mary Baldwin. And that is a large part of how we go about recruiting all of our students. Did you, I'm sorry, I thought I didn't know, Jane, if you, oh, okay. I saw, it looked like you were going to say something.
Sorry.
That's okay. And I do think that that is something that we should look at doing. We haven't done it in several years. Is the minority recruitment weekends that we used to do. And we used to do overnights, and I believe specifically tied to honors events. But that is something that we have talked about, but we have not done them in a couple of years. I saw.
Well, I was just, sort of to piggyback, I know when I was a freshman in 2005, because I graduated in 2009 with Jackie Kilgallen Simmons now, they had a big, like Ida B. Wells was huge. It was a huge group, and it was a huge deal. Is it? Okay.
No, it's not a huge deal. There's not as many students involved in it, wasn't in the past.
Really? And I know a lot of the friends I had in Ida B. Wells, because there were several. We were on Spencer 2, they were on Spencer 1. A lot of them didn't stay past their freshman year. They felt segregated and unincluded. And I mean, I realize as admissions that that's not really necessarily this focus, but are we addressing those concerns? Did we address those concerns?
I'm Andrea Cornett Scott. I'm the Associate Vice President for Inclusive Excellence. I've been here for 20 years. I've been here when the population of students of color was less than 3% and now 50%. During that time that you were here, the retention for African American students at Ida B. Wells was the highest retention record of all constituencies on campus. So that's not accurate that they believe. And in fact, the students who were involved in Ida B. Wells were more actively retained. And it's because of the relationships that you speak about. Because those relationships started before they got here, when they were prospective students, and they followed them all the way through their 4 years here at Mary Baldwin. So I agree with you that relationships are really, really important. And during that time, we would have, we had a minority recruiter, and we also had days like Kwanzaa, where we tied our recruitment weekend to those things. And so students became connected to not just the college, but also to events and traditions. And so they look forward to having their own tradition being a part of Kwanzaa. So those types of things were really important. And that's why we've been able to have such a rich, diverse campus, because they've been tied to those types of environments before they even came to Mary Baldwin. And you'll also know that we don't see many African American alumni today. But last week we had Kwanzaa. We had 100 African American alums on campus because the students who were involved with programs like Ida B. Wells, they come back throughout the year. They serve as mentors to the current students through the Sister Friends program, and they're also involved in things like Kwanzaa and Ajani, and they have strong relationships with our current students. So those relationships are extremely important. And I'm excited about the interest of alumni because I believe that when students have a connection with alumni throughout their first year experience, they stay.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think that type of engagement and relationship building is what living and learning communities are all about. And what I think we're all hoping to promote here that will affect retention in a huge way. So one more question and then it will be time to move on. Is there anything, Lynn?
So, I don't need to stand up, but I'm Drew Jacobus Hickey, class of 2005. One of the things that I'm struggling with, I've done some recruitment for Cotty College, which is the women's college in Missouri. And just, I live in Illinois, so, and I'm with the group that helps Cotty College, so that's kind of why I did that. I didn't know that I needed to be doing it for Mary Baldwin too, otherwise I would have, but anyway, the issue I have is when I go out and recruit for Cotty, I tell people about, you know, the women's college experience and how important it was for me in my development as a PEG and things like that. I'm struggling with how, with University College coming in and living on campus, I'm struggling with how I'm going to sell the school by saying it's a women's college and women's-centered and women's-focused, but there are these men on campus and they live there, they interact, and I mean, it's not an anti-male sentiment, it's just I don't know how to really talk about how unique the experience is when that seems to be eroding the uniqueness of the experience.
Somebody tell us how many men are likely to be here.
Well, we can talk about the numbers, but, you know, when we looked at the data from the other colleges, I think I said today, and also our co-ed programs, you generally run, there are schools that have co-ed arms where they're as much as 95% female even after, but I think that's probably very high. And what we see as most comparable are places that run between 80 and 90% female after some type of introduction of the undergraduate or graduate co-ed program.
Allison Kaufman, I serve on the board of trustees. I just want to kind of answer how I've approached it and some of the visits that I've gone on and the students I've talked to about how to still sell Mary Baldwin when you have now these university type programs. And the question I ask is their interest, because the programming Mary Baldwin is still the ethos, right? That heart and that personal transformational relationship you have with faculty. That's going to happen no matter what program you're in at Mary Baldwin University, and especially at the College for Women. So I kind of approach it asking what their interest is, because that allows me to say, even if you're interested in IT, and you know that's not necessarily the program we have here, but let me tell you about the value liberal arts education provides and what you're going to experience at campus when you come. So I almost like flip that question around to be able to still make that sell without having to talk about or address that co-educational residential component, but by saying no matter what program you're in, it's going to be that faculty relationship, the peer relationships develop. So that's how I've approached it, and some of the recent conversations I've had.
Can I take a shot at answering that as well? I'm actually, I know you're out of time because actually here for the next section. But really quickly, I'm Martha Walker. I'm the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. I think I know probably at least more than half of you in this room. I've been here a long time now. And to answer that question more particularly and to give you an idea of some of what we've been doing and the work and the effort that Rod spoke to this morning that the faculty has putting into this process, you don't have to shy away from selling the Mary Baldwin College for Women. The Mary Baldwin College for Women is going to continue to exist on this campus next fall. From the moment that those women come to campus, they're going to come into our gateway programs in a way that we're working to redefine now, which is probably going to help them understand their interests in the individual liberal arts areas. They're going to most likely be involved in a common reading experience that reflects on gender identity and empowerment and women's position. We're going to work to have faculty fellows in much the same way that we have faculty fellows in the Spencer Center, that are faculty who work co-curricularly with the Mary Baldwin College for Women students, so that the Mary Baldwin College for Women has an identity on this campus that's not simply whatever's left over after we look at X, Y, and Z. And I think that's what people are afraid of, but that's not at all the way the faculty is thinking about it. That's not the way that Residence Life is thinking about it. And there is work being done, just as there is for University College, in understanding the Mary Baldwin College for Women as not simply the legacy of the greater university, but as a central part of what it means to be women-centered. So that's my 2 cents.
It's a great note. We're going to have to end to a degree on that. What I would say is the Bravo program you can register for online.
Yes.
And so please do that, because that's the most efficient way to engage.